welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Housing. My name's Brennan Thomas, and I am the co-host here alongside the Stephen Thomas, chief economist and founder of Reports on Housing. Today, we will discuss the most recent news and statistics, economic green flags, if we'll see deflation, dropping rates, and much more. So, Stephen, I just want to start by asking what is going on in our large household?
Well, there's been a lot going on. Visited the new grandbaby. That's been fun. I have a new niece. That happened yesterday. Went up to state for Alana to run in at the state meet, and they surprised everyone and got third place. The Santa Margarita for Division 3, and led by my daughter. She did absolutely fantastic. So. I think she was 13th overall for Division 3. So she's a sophomore, and it was pretty fun to see. And we stayed up there for a couple days, celebrated her success, and that's what we're doing. Oh, and yeah, I went to the DMV today with that same with the same individual who ran, and she passed her driving test, and soon we'll be doing behind the wheel. She'll be like, what does that make it? The sixth kid? Yeah, the sixth kid. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, sixth kid that is behind the wheel that I am going to get behind in the passenger seat while I freak out while a brand new driver starts to drive the car. Yes, that's where I get all my white hair from. How about you?
Yeah.
Hey, I know that soccer resumed. So what's going on in Brennan's circle of life over there?
Great question. My team has made it up to first place, and we've been sitting here for a bit and been playing pretty good. There's been some shaky games. We've had some super extremely last second goals and stuff like that where we win the game, and oh my gosh, and then my day is just like peaking and everything, and but nothing crazy has really happened. It's just every single weekend there's always something new, and I always have something to look forward to with soccer, whether it's international games or if it's just club level and anywhere across Europe, as well as I try and keep an eye on MLS, which is off season right now, but it is super exciting. But other than that, I mean, I've just been enjoying the holidays and been taking our Christmas photos and just sort of embracing the holiday spirit, as we can say. So I am ready for Christmas. It is right around the corner, which is crazy to believe. Absolutely unbelievable, but I am excited for it. Yeah. But Stephen, as usual, what's been happening in the real estate industry with supply, demand, and our very own expected market time?
Yeah, so it depends upon the market. This is the holidays. So the fewest number of homes come on the market in December, second fewest November. So we usually get inventory that comes down quite a bit. There are some markets where the inventory isn't coming down as fast, but neither is demand. Demand hasn't cratered or anything like that either. And usually demand falls quite a bit. It's been kind of like the story of the year where we've had flat supply and flat demand that's just been trailing down slowly. Inventory in some markets is coming down a little bit faster than demand, but like I said, there's others where demand's actually dropping faster than the supply. So overall, it's kind of a mixed bag. But at the end of the day, expect a market time. Like when you have inventory that's coming down faster than demand, well, then you have the market improving a little bit. And if you have inventory that's that's actually not coming down as fast as demand is going down, then it's actually slowing down a little bit. So really, it's market specific. There really is. You have to look at market to market to market. But I'd say the vast majority inventory is coming down faster than demand. So we have expected market time that it's starting to come down, which means that the market's getting a little hotter as it gets further into the holidays. Usually it's flat, but due to the fact that we have very low limited inherent demand, we have supply coming down faster. Typically, it's because a lot of homeowners that have been on the market pull their home off the market to enjoy the holidays. And I think that is definitely going to happen in all markets come these after this next week. It's just going to plunge because a lot of people will want to enjoy the holidays. They'll pull their homes off the market, and very few homes come on the market the last couple of weeks of December. It's just doesn't. It's not one of those that time of the year where it makes a lot of sense because there's not a lot of people that are just going, man, I'm eager to find a house or I'm eager to sell my house right now. So they kind of postpone it until after the new year.
Well, this week, an exciting week. Before this will be released, actually, today is the December 8th, and it's Jobs Week. How did those reports turn out?
Yeah, so unfortunately for the number of as far as the number of jobs that were created this last month, it came in a little bit higher than what than expectations are. So that made it so that interest rates actually reverse course. They went up. Now, earlier, and it's not that big of a deal. It still is you can see the trend that it's been going lower over time. I imagine December's will be even lower. So the trend is there. The trend is your friend. As far as job participation actually increased. So unemployment came down a little bit, and it was at 3.9 going down to 3.7, means that it's actually it's more favorable again for employees. However, one of the biggest things that actually happened earlier this week, and that is the number of job openings. It slid a lot more than what expectations were. So we're under 9 million. It slid quite a bit to about 8.7 million, and it was way lower than expectations. And we got a big drop in interest rates as a result. So even though today interest rates came up a little bit, still overall, it's been a win for interest rates for the week.
I just have to ask, we've seen some negative readings indicating a cooling economy. What reports or news has caught your eye to sort of indicate this?
Yeah, there's been a series of negative readings. It's not really. It's the start of, you could see that the numbers aren't as dazzling. And it started a month ago with those jobs reports. And it's just one report after another where it's just indicating that things are starting to slow. Those trends look like they were hot, but they're coming down. And everything from consumer spending to inflation sentiment. And there's a number of favorable. CPI was lower than expected. We're going to get another CPI report that's coming up Monday. So there's just a number of reports, like I said, that were. It's just showing that things are cooling a bit from their earlier hot paths from earlier this year. So that's more of it. It's just this slow unwinding of a really hot economy where it's starting to slow down. It's not like it's crashing or anything like that, but you could definitely see that it's slowing. Some of the indicators are the savings rates. People aren't saving as much. The excess savings from the stimulus packages, those are coming down quite a bit. And then you have credit card debt that has been spiking. So a combination of all of that. And the credit card debt also, they have interest rates that they have not seen since 2007 so if you have an outstanding balance, interest rates have risen quite a bit on credit cards to where they were back in 2007. Everybody's had way lower interest rates on their credit cards up until the Fed started jacking up higher those short-term Fed funds rates. So these are the mix of everything all together is what you're kind of seeing, this gradual slowdown of the economy.
So with these sort of headlines that we've been receiving recently, how do you see the Federal Reserve reacting in the coming months?
Yeah, it's so funny. The markets are so fickle, and so is all the interviews they have on CNBC and the different news channels. I'm all over the place on YouTube looking for as much economic information as possible and looking at the Wall Street Journal. You get one report that the expectations are higher than what where not the expectations, the actual statistic is higher than what expectations are, kind of like today, where the employment numbers were a little bit higher. And as a result, then they've been saying, as we've been report after report after report, they've been saying that the Fed is going to do a rate cut next year. This is what the market said. You get one report like this today, and now everybody's saying it's off the table. It's off the table. It's like they overreact to everything. It's like a yawn fest for me because I see the trend is your friend. I actually see that the Fed possibly can do those rate cuts as we get more and more reports. One economic reading doesn't mean that this is the consensus of what the economy is doing. It's just a series. So the series that we had one report that where it was higher than expectations. That was today. That doesn't mean that that it's off the table. That means you have to continue to watch what happens in January, what happens in February, what happens in March, because a lot of people are saying that the actual reduction will come like April, May, or May, June, somewhere around that time frame down the road, and I could still see a pathway for that to happen. So one report doesn't indicate that that's exactly what's going to happen. So that's been the consensus that's out there, and that's something that we should continue to watch. But as far as a rate increase for the month of December when the Fed meets, I think the probability of that happening is just about zero. And if they did it, it would be just absolutely the most ridiculous move. So I don't see it in the market. The markets don't see it, so I don't anticipate it.
Is it safe to say that the headwinds that we've been seeing recently, can they be considered as green flags?
Yes, I like green flags. I told you one of my favorite things I like to call is green shoots. We'll talk about green shoots, where there's a big patch of snow, but the snow's starting to thaw, and then all of a sudden, boop, you see this little plant that's coming out of the snow, and that's the green shoot. That's what kind of like, I know that that's what we're going to see next year, these green shoots, because we're bottoming out in terms of demand, in terms of it can't get really lower than where we are demand wise. And we can't really see, there's a lot of homeowners that aren't placing their homes on the market because they have these great rates. Well, it's kind of at a level that it is the lowest level that we will see, and it's only up from here. So we're going to see green shoots. I'm actually going to be talking about more of these green flags, green shoots next year, because we'll have indicators where right now we can actually see in many markets where we're starting to see more homes come on the market than the prior year. Off the top of my head, I think of LA, because I did reports recently, presentations. LA, San Bernardino, Riverside County all have more homes that came on the market than for the month of November than November of last year. That's a good sign. And if you look at year-over-year numbers for most of all the markets, it's very close to the last year. So we're getting this year-over-year comparison. Demand's the same way, where it's very close to where it was last year. So which means that we'll see this breakout. Interest rates come down far enough, we're going to see this breakout in more homes coming on the market and also more pending sales. So as we see that, we're going to be able to talk about these different green shoots throughout the year, and that probably is going to be kind of like the sentiment for 2024.
Now, over the past year and a half, there has been plenty of chatter regarding a looming recession. So I personally know that you have your recession flags. How are each of those looking towards the end of 2023?
Yeah, so here is the recession flags that we look at. It borrowed definitely from a whole bunch of different people that follow this thing religiously, and that's who I lean into. I lean into the experts within that's what their focus is. And here's what they are. The Fed raises the short-term rate. They did that in March of 2022, flag. Leading economic indicators negative for 6 months, flag. Inventory yield, the yield curve, not inventory, inverted yield curve. That's been like that for quite some time. That's a flag. Unemployment rate drops below 4%. It did that. Another flag. Housing starts fall for 2 quarters straight. That's another flag. And retail sales dropping and supplies spike. That's a flag. It did happen initially, but you know what? It's no longer really. That one's really not there. So you get retail sales dropping and supply spike, and it's actually due to weaker demand. And boy, the consumer has been really busy dipping into their savings and credit card and their excess savings and that type of thing. So that's the one that I can see that's where we're going to see that weakness coming up. But it's only going to be weak enough where even if we have some sort of recession down the road, it's going to only be slight. it's going to be what I think Moody's Economics calls it a slow session, if we even have one. And I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it occurring. And if it does, it's just going to be so slight. So that's kind of what the sentiment is. There aren't that many people that are thinking this thing's going to be a deep recession. And unless you're a permanent bearish person, which there are plenty of those dudes out there. And it's also, it's just this overall gloomy perspective. There are very few people that actually subscribe to that narrative. And that's what it is. It's just a narrative. It's just another one of those clickbait channels on YouTube that typically get paid for everybody and their brother to come in and wish for the worst thing to happen in the economy so they can get into real estate.
So deflation, from what I seem to see on some articles, seems to be the talk of the town as CPI keeps falling. Would you say there is a possibility of deflation in the next year or two?
No. The reason it's because the labor market's too strong. A, B, everybody thinks that once inflation subside, in order for inflation to subside, I've talked to a lot of people. A lot of just the general public, and the general public thinks that once inflation is done, that prices will revert to where they were, or go down from the highs where they're at. We just don't simply see that. That's actually not healthy for the economy. We're kind of absorbing what's here right now. And then over time, inflation will be under control, and we'll be making more, which will be outstripping inflation, which it barely happened over the last year that people are making a little bit more than inflation. So you're actually making net, you're making more on a monthly basis. So that's how incomes have outdone inflation. But we just don't see numbers going down. That's not in the cards. That's not what this is talking about. Once inflation's under control, it stops. And now it doesn't stop at a halt. What they're trying to bring it in is at 2% inflation annually. So 2% inflation is still up, but only slightly. And that's taken into consideration a basket of all goods, not just restaurants or hotels. It's pretty much automobiles, it's housing, it's rents, it's things like that. So it's just everything out there, taking a look at it. Even food and fuel are added into the mix, but that's pulled out when you want to look at the core, because that's really volatile. But we just don't see it going negative, and that's what deflation would be. That's not in the cards.
So many different news articles and companies seem to be predicting 2024 as the year is closing. And it seems as if almost every single one is entirely different. So is the upcoming year really that unpredictable?
We're in uncharted waters. That is absolutely plain. When I start my forecast, which when we listen to this, if you're listening to this on a Wednesday, it will be the following day on Thursday that it comes out. It's what day is that? The 14th, I believe. Yeah, it's 14th. Yes, 14th, we will be releasing of December. We'll be releasing our forecast for Southern California. But what you need to understand is that I start off with that uncharted waters because we really haven't been here before. As economists, we like to stick everything in a box and look backwards and say, okay, we've been here before. This is how it looks like it will chart out. It's very, very difficult. There's a lot of people that subscribe to there's different cycles that happen every 10 years or 20 years or 15. That doesn't hold water with any economist. We don't look at cycles and say, oh, we're overdue for one. That's not how it works. You got to look at all the numbers and see, looking at everything, what's the trends looking forward and where are we going from here? It has nothing to do with any of those cycles. It's just babble that I hear, and it's typically non-economists that are saying that, and I heard it a lot, especially within the real estate trenches. That just doesn't exist. So since we haven't been here before, it means that it's very difficult to prognosticate where we are going based upon all the numbers, because when we went into COVID, it was the biggest disruptor in all kinds of numbers. We even had a mini recession, it looked like, in 2021 for a couple quarters, and that had only to do with supply spikes at Target and Walmart and other places. So there was a problem with all those boats that were sitting out in Long Beach They unloaded their all the wares after the holidays. Then they had way too much inventory and they over booked things because then they had to get them other ways, and they did whatever they could to get stuff into the stores. And then we just had a supply issue, and it was only very, very slight. So it wasn't even called a recession by the people that get to call it a recession, even though we had two negative quarters of GDP, which is what everybody typically thinks is the recession. Typically it is, but in this case it wasn't. But it continues to disrupt everything. And a lot of this disruption has to do with there have been some stimulus packages, and it's put way too much money into the economy, and it's kept everything really juicy, and it's propped everything up like crazy. So it's been very hard to see, okay, how much of this is just excess from the stimulus packages from both the last administration and this administration. Our argument is that they probably shouldn't have done either one of those stimulus packages, that it was just too much, and it added way too much stimulus into the overall economy, and we're working our way through that. So it's kind of like that's what's helped us avert a recession. But after a while, all this stuff will work, all this wonkiness in the numbers will work out. It's just not yet. So trying to prognosticate where we are going, it all really depends upon when the consumer runs out of money. And we see a pathway for that. And that is, because I said the savings is at a savings rate that goes all the way back to 2009. We're not saving as a nation like we did, all consumers across the United States. It's very, very actually similar, to 2009. Prior to COVID, we saved a lot more, and we're dipping into our excess savings that's coming down quite a bit. And everybody should be running out of their excess savings in 2024 as well. So we're not saving as much. Well, excess savings will be gone. Credit card debt's going up. It's going to slow down that consumer, and that will feed into GDP. We'll have a slowdown, and that kind of a slowdown, we'll have to see how deep that slowdown gets. It's not going to be extremely deep. That's why we call it, if it is deep, it's just what we call a slow session, not a recession, and it's just going to be slight, not a lot of job loss. But that's to come, and that's us. That's our take on it. But that's everything that we see looking at the numbers. But people are all over the place. I don't know if they're looking at everything as much in detail as we are. Some are, some aren't. We'll just have to see. But as a result, everything is all over the board.
Well, thank you for that little teaser of the forecast as well. So everyone, please make sure to tune in tomorrow to Steven's forecast, because it is going to be amazing as always. So back to the podcast. Recently, we've seen some relief with mortgage rates as they've declined to the lower sevens. And for me personally, I feel like saying that it's going to the low sevens is a relief from where they were before, which is crazy to say. I've heard you talk about this before, but will mortgage rates lead the way for the rest of the year and into 2024?
Yes, and that's the thing. It's funny because we're going to get down into this. We're going to go below 7. That's what everybody kind of feels it's going to get there, because there will be that natural slowdown, and the progression will be that we've gone from 8 to 7 in a minute. It seems like we were all the way at 8, and I think that did everybody a giant favor. So they realized that once we're in the 6s, all of a sudden 6 sounds a lot better than when we were at 8. And before we were going 6s. When is this thing going to get down into the 5s? But now it's like, boy, I can't wait for it to get in the 6s. And then once it gets into the 5s, it's changed the mentality of everybody. Everybody tied to real estate, all consumers are going to think, man, in the 5s, I didn't think we were going to get back into the 5s. So once that happens down the road, there's going to be a mass amount of demand that is going to accumulate. It's already going to accumulate when we get in the 6s. When we get into the 5s, it's going to be like a bonanza. And then there's going to be more homeowners that come on as well. So that's starting off 2024 already. In the 6s, we're going to be a lot more excited about 6s than we were when we were at the 6s earlier this year.
So in September, the median national rent on single-family homes had increased to 2.6% year over year. With that being said, one of the economists from the National Association of Realtors said that we have a divided market, with homeowners doing well, yet the potential home buyers, renters, who want to be a part of the ownership society are struggling to get into the market. Would mortgage rates lowering be the door allowing those potential buyers entry into home ownership?
Yeah, and here's the thing. So as rates go up, fewer and fewer Americans can afford to even buy a home. When we went from 7 to 8, it was estimated right around 5 million homeowners could no longer afford a home. But now we've gone from 8 to 7. Now 5 million more citizens can buy a home. And we go from 7 to 6, it even opens the pathway even more. So you can see that as rates drop, the pathway for people getting into real estate opens up for many people. And yes, this is absolutely, it's a great sign. 8% is when things were the hottest, and it was an overreaction to a lot of the things that the Fed was saying at the time, as well as some reports that were back in August and the beginning of September. But that has since evolved and changed, and there's a pathway forward to the reports of things continuing to slow, which means that 8 was a height. Now we're towards 7. Can we see a path where we even get lower and the Fed actually reduces the short-term rate, the Fed fund rate? Absolutely, yes. And that's all indicators are that that's going to be in 2024.
So now in 2024, my question to you is, if mortgage rates were to fall, say, into the high fives, would we happen to see bidding wars again? If so, can you explain why?
Yeah, I actually think we're going to see that before then. I see a pathway between it, because if the economy, when it slows down, it's going to slow down, and mortgage rates are going to fall with no points between 6.25% and 6.75%. That's the next level of interest rates. Right now, we've been playing between about 6.75% recently to 8, and you can see that it's been coming down towards 7. And you can see once we get to 6.75%, how does it get even lower than that? It gets lower than that when the economy cools down even more. Now we're at 6.25% to 6.75% with no points. You add a point, now you're actually in the fives, and you can imagine that it's just going to increase the number of people that are going to be interested, even at 6.25% to 6.75%, and there's going to be bidding wars then. When it gets into when and if it gets into the fives, that's a totally different story. So people say, well, the economy's slow, we're in a recession. Yeah, I'm just not buying that it's going to cause a lot of speed bumps within the housing market, because there are way too many millennials and Gen Zers that are out there that want to purchase and have been sitting on the sidelines, unable to. It'll be like feeling like a gift being in the fives versus the 8. So, which is why we've been saying this is actually a good time to buy, is like now if you can. And the reason for that, and if it meets your family budget and all that stuff, the reason for that is because down the road, you're going to be competing with a lot of people. And if you're competing with a lot of people, then demand will definitely outstrip the number of homes that are coming on the market. Yes, we'll get more homes that come on the market once we're in the fives, but there'll be way more demand. So as a result, you get those bidding wars, you're going to get prices that could go up like 10% in a year. I definitely see that that's plausible, and you're competing like crazy. And the longer you're competing, the more values are going up and you can afford less. We already experienced that 2020 through 2020, the first half of 2022. And that's to come. So that's what I'm fearful of. It's not healthy at all. It's not what I'm actually rooting for, but this is what we see in all the numbers, and that we like to tell it like it is, so that people can make really good decisions by properly setting expectations.
So with our housing market's recent affordability challenges, it looks as if Gen Z and millennials are using loopholes to help bridge the gap the gap to better affordability. According to a study done by Zillow, more than half of Gen Z and millennials are house hacking, as they say, which is renting out a portion of the home. Could this be a different solution, kind of like how you described with purchasing a duplex?
This is a great, absolutely fantastic solution. And the good thing about our family is we have so many kids that you guys can, as you own, you can rent to somebody else, and then as they get their feet going and they get married and dual income or whatever, and then they can go off, and then the next person can buy that house, and then the next kid comes up and they rent. It's a really smart way of doing things. I actually graduated from college, and I first rented for a little bit. And my brother bought a house because he had been working for a while. He's older than me, and then I moved in with him, paid him rent. It's just just a smart way to go. It really is. And especially if you know somebody that you can rent to, how fantastic is that? So that's one way of getting in. That is those different ways of thinking outside of the box. And I'm just happy to see that people are starting to think along those lines, because down the road, they'll be happy that they did.
So, when looking at the economy as a whole, is it safe to say that housing leads the way with how the economy will look?
Yeah. So, you overall you could see this cooling down of the economy, but then you could see that the robustness of real estate will replace the cooling of the economy. So economy cools, rates come down, and then housing will be what brings the economy out of its doldrums. So yes, actually, this is an indicator of in the future what the economy will look like, is watching the housing market, and then watching the overall economy. Yes, it can cool, but housing will lift it from the doldrums.
So, I read an article that highlighted a so called upcoming crash due to median new home prices dropping by 18% year over year in October. Can you explain why this headline is extremely misleading?
So I'm crossing my eyes if you can't see it, and that's because these kind of headlines drive me nuts, because we almost always get these negative prints on medians coming down at the end of the year. Must be the best time to purchase because everybody wants to sell their product. That's not necessarily true. What's happened is the median sales price is just it's a horrible indicator. You cannot drive a car with a speedometer that's broken. That's what median sales price is. It goes all over the place. Yes, it's going. You're moving, so it's looking like it's going up, but it's like flailing all over the place, especially at the end of the year, because we do fewer transactions typically, and new home sales. They've been trying to pivot towards, as interest rates have risen, what do they have to pivot towards? They have to pivot towards smaller homes. And as rates have gone from 3.25 to where they are today, they've had some homes in the system that were really big. Well, now when they have new neighborhoods that are coming online, what are they looking at? Smaller homes, because it makes more sense, easier for Americans to get into homes that have a smaller sticker price when these mortgage interest rates are so high. So they can still get in. So that's what they've pivoted towards. And as a result, you've seen this deterioration, a little bit of median of new homes, but that doesn't mean that prices are coming down. That's ridiculous. That's not what we've had. Yes, prices have slowed from where they were earlier this year because we got up to 8%. But as far as going negative, yeah, I just don't really see it. It's not a very good indicator. This indicator is so wonky. Watch what happens during the springtime. You're going to see something completely different in the new homes arena. And the new homes arena is such a small portion of the overall housing market and we don't even track that piece of it because all their numbers are, like I said, they're extremely wonky as well, their numbers. So if you're looking at overall the housing market, and we're looking at residential resale, that's more of an indicator that things have really stabilized and we're still have values that are going up in spite of the higher rates this year. It's not like last year. And so all those people they're looking at these medians going, look at this, the median. I've hated the monthly reports of medians because overall it'll balance out and it'll give you the true indicator of the direction things are going when you're following medians. However, you get these different nuances in between reports on a monthly basis that are just absurd. It's not smooth at all when you look at medians. So that's why we don't even follow it. We follow home price indices, which are far more accurate and a lot more smooth.
Speaking of, looking at Freddie Mac's house price index, in January, we started with being at 5% year over year. And then in April, it got as low as 1%. But the most recent reading in October, from today, which is December 8th, we climbed all the way back up to 6%, making it the highest year over year level so far. What could be the reasoning for this?
So, if you remember to last year, 2022, the first half of the year was strong. So when you get these readings in April, year over year, we had values that were continuing to go up at a pretty good clip at the start of the year. So that's where you saw this deterioration when you're looking at year over year statistics as the year was going on. But then what happened in the country, in Southern California, it peaked out in May. In the United States, the peak was in June, and then it dropped all the way to December. Now, if it was continuing to drop from June on, you could see that now we're looking at year over year numbers. They were dropping. And right now they were going up kind of flat. It's at a really slow rate right now, but even if it's flat, and they were going down at this time last year over year is going to continue to rise. And it's going to continue to do that through when? December. And then finally, when we get the readings on January, which we're not going to get until like the very, very end of February, then you're actually going to see really good indicators as to how the market looks, because we'll have good year over year comparisons. And that'll be very, very interesting to see going forward into 2024.
So I read that there was a bill introduced in the House and Senate would prevent hedge funds from owning single family houses in the United States, called the End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act of 2023. And I'm just wondering, Stephen, what are your thoughts on this?
So the hedge funds out there, accumulatively, they own just a small, tiny little percentage of homes across the United States. It's really small. It's like less than 3%. But then when you look at it and you think, that's not that big of a deal. That's not that many homes out there, for Pete's sake. But there's his handle, I think, is Sacramento Appraiser on X, used to be Twitter, and we're friends. And he did a wonderful study, and the study was that he actually plotted where all these were in the neighborhoods, and he didn't just do the Sacramento area. He like did all of California, and he showed Southern California. And then when I was looking at that, when you see it at that granular level and you actually look at it where they are within these streets, it's pretty daunting. And it almost goes against the grain of what we should be all about. Now, these hedge funds got us out of the Great Recession because they gobbled up a whole bunch of homes that were negative and flipped them as fast as possible and did different things, turned them into rentals and things like that was much needed to get us out of the Great Recession. However, so that was a great solution that the government turned to these entities. However, long term, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to allow them to continue to be a big portion of markets. And in some neighborhoods, you can actually see it. They like own every other house. It's pretty ridiculous, to the point where something needs to be done. Now, what they're saying in this bill is actually that forcing them to sell it within a certain amount of time and actually taxing them on their increases and putting them into a fund against lower income, allowing lower income to get into real estate. Now, the chances of this passing are actually zero, especially the way it's written. But it does show that something should be done. And there will be enough people across the United States that would probably agree with me if they saw the same report that I looked at it. And I'm pretty sure it'd be more than 50%. And the only reason I actually didn't really care. I was going, it's not that big. The percentage is really low. When you look at the percentage and you say it's less than 3%, that's nothing. But when you actually see it, and especially remember, they own a lot in the sunnier areas. So when you look at that part of the country, it becomes a bigger piece of the pie. And they have been very reluctant to sell. Now, within the last year, they actually have been net sellers across the board, but they were so busy purchasing in 2020, 2021, and the first part of 2022 that they actually own a big piece. And they were really a big, giant player in the overall market. Now, when things slow down, it doesn't look as good. And maybe, you know what, we might want to slow down a little bit. Yeah, they're not playing. But once things get busy again, guess what? They're going to be playing again. And it'll come to a point where more of these maps are going to be shown so that people can actually visualize it. More people will actually see it. And it will make for some very interesting discussions that something needs to be done to limit the ability for them to take away homes from other people that could actually be purchasing. I have lots of kids. Gen Z's having a problem. Millennials are having a problem purchasing. And yet these people, these funds that come in with all cash are able just to go in there and get whatever they want. We'll be to the top of the pack. You want us to pay a little bit extra? Sure, no problem. We have $1 billion in this fund. No big deal. Something needs to be done after seeing that. And my compliments to the Sacramento appraiser because he opened my eyes a little bit to a real issue that's out there.
So before we conclude today's episode, I just have to highlight what you are wearing right now because I think it's fantastic personally. Unfortunately, I am not as much in the Christmas spirit for right now, but maybe I'll find something for our next episode. But for the meantime, Steven, can you let everyone know what you are wearing? Because I think it's awesome.
So I'm a goofball, and totally forgot I had this. I went, holy crow, I gotta wear this. Look at this thing. Yes, if you can't see it, I'm wearing a hooded sweatshirt. I have another one. I won't say what it is because I'll wear it to the next one. Fantastic also. It looks like I'm wearing what is it? A tuxedo, but it's a Christmas tuxedo. It's got red, it's got green, and a gigantic big black tie with the dress shirt underneath of it, but the sleeves are red and green with some, I guess, what is that? Some holly, so it's good. It looks good. I can even put on the hood. It even further, I think it has deers on it. So there you go. I mean, pretty fun. I just like to get in the mood. If you were to come by my house, you'd actually think that I'm Clark Griswold from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation because we are all lit up.
Well, thank you for that amazing description. That was actually pretty good. So, and also thank you everyone for tuning into another episode of Let's Talk Housing. Now, if you want to learn more about what's going on in the real estate industry across Southern California or the Bay Area, and I won't forget this time, and now Ventura, feel free to check out our YouTube or subscribe today at reportsonhousing.com. Please leave us a good review. And if you have any questions, feel free to post it anywhere to our social media, or you can shoot me an email at info@reportsonhousing.com. We will see you soon and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.